Beyonce excels at punching people in the face with her voice, but like in a really, really good way. And this matters because a vocal run without attacks is just a bunch of unintelligible mush. And the anatomy behind Beyonce's approach is why her runs ooze meaning. The more you learn about her complex mechanics and her deliberate musical decisions, the more you realize just how good Beyonce really is. We're gonna be doing some Beyonce today. I'm gonna take a listen to this real quick. Oh, it's nice. I like that one a lot. I'm trying to point out here is that there's something called articulation in a run. Without that, it's just kind of mush. You just get a bunch of notes and it's not musical, it doesn't mean anything. When we have an envelope here, what we're talking about is we got the attack like that, they got the sustain and then the release. And this is basically a loose description of wave files. But when we talk about a sound, we can describe the sound in terms of its dynamics in this way. So Beyonce is doing this, at least did this a lot, as a way to kind of mimic blues guitar. And it's a way of getting this nice attack on the note so everything's not mush. Now, as she does it in this particular instance by tilting the larynx, and just a really quick tilt of the larynx, of the thyroid cartilage, forward. And the reason why that does increase the volume is that when you tilt your thyroid cartilage, you're stretching out the vocal folds. It's called sound pressure levels. So you build up the breath pressure, the disturbance of the particles in the air are going to be more intense, the volume is going to increase, bada bing, bada boom, good stuff. So that's how she's doing it here. But there's more than one way to get an attack and emphasize a note. Now that is remarkably difficult. All right, maybe I feel that way because, I can't growl terribly well, but that is really difficult. So it's the same concept that there's going to be a constriction or a tightening of something in the larynx and something in the vocal tract. In this case, growling, what you're generally doing is you're bringing just the vocal tract closer together and you're going to get rattling from all kinds of different sources. The arytenoid cartilage is like right in the back here. It's what brings your vocal folds together. It's super tiny. You're going to bring the vocal folds together here. So what she's doing here is she's bringing the epiglottis back, which is the thing that sits like behind your tongue and prevents you. Let's get an MRI scan. That way you can see it. So this right here, this is the epiglottis, is that big honker of a thing right there. And you can see that there's going to be a bunch of different styles of distortion that go on. So that's a pitch distortion of sorts, vocal, like a vibration bass or a throat bass. But the point is that you see a lot of things moving and jostling. So distortion is a little bit more complicated than people would generally have you believe. You can bring the epiglottis back so that it touches the arytenoid cartilage here, and that's the kind of more traditional gospel growl that we associate with what Beyonce's doing right there with the she's bringing that epiglottis back, constricting the throat to get the growl, and doing it like that, right? She's doing it like that. Really cool way to articulate. Crisp. Come on, that was nice. There's a big trend right now with people doing runs where they right, where they do the little jaw thing. Like for example, not to mention the resonance changes when you do that. So whenever you change the resonance like that, right, that's when you're gonna get that articulation. Well done, well done. And so what we have is a wombo combo, right? The wombo combo, we're having multiple different ways to get these articulations, right? We got the jaw, we got the laryngeal tilt, we got growling going on, and now our aspirates, right? Onsets, right? So, ho. What did he say? I'm not calling anybody names, okay? All right, let's just be clear about that. Don't cancel me. The huh is we treat it as a consonant, but what it is it's a puff of air and it opens the vocal folds. Now, interestingly enough, what makes the H sound loud is the amount of frequency range that it covers. That's what makes it loud. So as we blow air through the vocal folds, they come together. It's called the Bernoulli effect. It's not what you think would happen, right? You get You'd think that they would blow apart when I blow air through it, but they don't. They come together. And so that's called the Bernoulli effect. So that's how we control the folds coming to and from. But if we blow really hard, then we also have some agency about how much we can, move or let, make apart the vocal folds. We have some agency over that. But if we do that, then we get a full-on sound. And so that's why it affects our attack. We're not done yet. Or rather, I should say Beyonce's not done yet. Laryngeal height. Let's take a listen. So the higher larynx achieves a few things. It will lighten the folds a little bit. It'll make them less thick. Forget why mechanically that exactly works, but it'll thin them out a little bit when you raise the larynx. That's why a lot of people, when they reach for high notes, they jut their jaw, they lift their head up so that their larynx goes up, so it thins the folds. Thinner folds, higher notes are easier, right? But she doesn't just do it so that she can move faster. She does it so that she's phrasing the whole thing. Whoa. Just by manipulating the larynx itself. And these things, just to be clear, these things are like trained and then you forget about them. Consciously doing this, like she's beyond that, right? She's practiced it a gajillion times and now can do it, right? Now, conversely, if you can raise the larynx, you can also lower the larynx. Let's take a listen to that. A little bit of a change in the embouchure that does fall under vowels, but if we want to use embouchure, it's not a bad word. So she's doing this, ooh, but also kind of bringing the tongue back a little bit. And that makes everything kind of fade a little bit. Ordinarily, I'd never recommend anybody bring their tongue back ever because I'm a purist swine. So we're going to alternate between the laryngeal heights. That was a really good belt there, and the transition into that belt too was really nice and smooth. If I try to mimic that, like the sound of that, never,
stop this madness,
please. Her dynamic control on the belts are so much better. But that sliding up and that crescendo decrescendo on the belt, man, belts are just loud by default. So what she's doing there, she's got a delay pedal on. And so she's harmonizing with herself just by making sure that whatever happened, she's singing in thirds, right? So it's like if you did a row, row, row your boat, I forget what that's called, in recall or whatever, like if you did it like row, 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 and then people start on that, right? I forget what the word is for that. But if you do that, you're going to get harmonies and like mostly thirds. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. 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 Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. And so that's kind of what she's doing there. She's, I assume, practiced that run or is able to just riff on the top of her head and be like, yeah, this will work in thirds. This brings us to another point, right? So we're talking about attack a lot. We're talking about phrasing a lot, but now we're getting into harmony, right? We're talking about stacking thirds, and that's like counterpoint. And, counterpoint is inherently a conversation about harmony. It's melody being combined to create harmony. But harmonic context matters because you can do different things depending on what chords you're sitting on. It's not just like an arpeggiation of the chord. You can actually gut out of the key into the key just depending on what you're on. right? So she's using the echo again, the delay pedal, but in this context, she's doing da 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 da, which will make the seconds be really, really dissonant on one another. Now she could do this by doing a ninth chord or a seventh chord and going, or like a 13th or whatever. It depends. The guitar player that was preceding that, when I have the jazz comping statement here, listen carefully for the jazz guitar. So what we have, I think, there was like a minor 7 at the end there. So she could play with those notes in between and then have the seconds stacked on top of each other. And in the harmonic context, it works really well because that is in the chord itself. Those are chord tones, which is what you're aiming for when you want to emphasize a note in a melody. You want to get on those chord tones because that's what sounds nice. So she has two notes next to each other, and usually that's not very attractive as a sound, but it works. And it works because they're both chord tones. And it's still dramatic. It's still a dissonant thing to do melodically. So it's a really cool musical decision there. Ooh. Ooh. So what is a Picardy third? A Picardy third is the opposite of a deceptive cadence. So a deceptive cadence is you're expecting to land on a minor, like you got 5, you got 5 to 1. A Picardy third is a 5 to a major 1. So so you can do this stuff when you're doing runs and you're doing a cappella, and you can dictate the harmonic flow. So doing runs should be a musical exercise in rhythm, in phrasing, and in harmony. And in melody. It should sound good, right? So like the technique there is really cool. I like it a lot. I hope you guys learned something about runs. I hope you guys appreciate Beyonce a little bit more. If you didn't appreciate her before, or you think it's just, I don't know, there's like, the more you learn about singing, the more you listen to these artists, you're like, damn, they're that good. They're that good. It's so inspiring. It's super cool. I love listening to this stuff. Yeah, in the comments down below, please, if you got any other recommendations, please go ahead and put those in the comments down below. Thanks. I look like way younger with shorter hair, I feel. The thing is, like, when I don't have my headphones on, it looks like janky. Bye.